I got something bold for you. How about a defensive player wins the MVP of the Super Bowl? Listen, Mahomes, you've got every award. Let your big fella eat too. If they're going to hold Saquon Barkley and win this game, it's going to be because Chris Jones had a dominant performance. If they do that, give the man an accolade.
I like that, actually. That's a good one. Graz, try and live up to that.
I'll try. DeAndre Hopkins catches the game-winning touchdown. Remember DeAndre Hopkins? He's on the Chiefs. You may not have known that from watching this year's playoffs, but he was their big deadline acquisition. At some point, I think he makes a contribution. Last year it was Mecole Hardman. Could be anybody with the Chiefs. That's my prediction. DeAndre Hopkins reminds everybody who he plays for and has his Super Bowl moment.
I like that. Last year it was a player they acquired during the season. Maybe they do it again. Mike T, give me a bold prediction.
Saquon Barkley is held to under 100 yards. Building on what Bart said, maybe it's Chris Jones' domination, but how about this, Greeny? Steve Spagnuolo has gone 18 consecutive postseason games as the Chiefs defensive coordinator, holding the opposition's best running back under 100 yards. I expect that to continue.
That's as bold as it gets, and obviously an enormous factor in this game. Let's talk about Saquon for a moment. Yesterday on local Philadelphia radio, our Jason Kelce, who knows that offense as well as it can be known, brought up how the Eagles' explosive addition on offense has impacted the conversations around the quarterback this year.
I think Jalen never gets enough credit for a lot of the things he does for this offense. And Saquon Barkley would not have the season he had without having Jalen Hurts as a quarterback. And that's a reality of it. And he never gets credit for that. And a little bit, but all of that goes to the offensive line and Saquon. Mm-hmm. The reality is, his threat as a runner, his threat as an RPO person, all of that stuff opens up so many other things.
So that's really interesting. And again, that's about as credible a person to be saying that as you possibly can get. So was this linebacker sitting here. Oh. Is that right? Is Jalen Hurts' ability to run a significant factor in the season that Saquon Barkley has had?
Yeah, I would say it's right up there with the offensive line, how massive they are, and the play design and Saquon's greatness. But, we see it in Baltimore as well with Lamar Jackson. When you have a quarterback that's a threat to keep the ball, it holds the backside defensive end and the backside linebacker. It forces offenses to play 11 on 11. And when you have those two paying attention to Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley is one-on-one, we've seen he has more yards in the NFL than anybody without even getting touched. I think something like 1,500 yards. So when you look at the key to the Super Bowl is going to be, can he do something with his arms? But right now, it's because the running game is so effective because of that threat.
But, Greeny, the reality is this. In the playoffs, Jalen Hurts is averaging roughly about 8 rushing yards attempts per game. So to me, he's really playing better, throwing for the pocket, to his credit, especially against Washington. So during the regular season, I agree with what Jason Kelce said, but that has not been the trend in the playoffs.
Yeah, but remember, he's come in the playoffs, coming back from the concussion, and then he had the knee. So we will see. Graziano, help me figure something out here.
I'll try.
I cannot decide if Jalen Hurts, because look at the question on the screen.
Yeah.
We don't usually ask that about a guy who has been the starting quarterback in the Super Bowl twice in a 3-year span. Mm-hmm. Is Jalen Hurts underappreciated? Is he overly criticized? I feel like there's a sentiment out there that he is, and I'm not sure I agree.
The problem is, in the times in which we live, there's a sentiment out there that says everything, right? Like you can find a conversation happening online that says Jalen Hurts stinks, and you can find a conversation happening online that says Jalen Hurts is the greatest quarterback of all time. It's a matter of what you want to pay attention to. I think what is accurate about Jalen Hurts this season is that, yes, he's still the quarterback that can elevate his team and he can have a game as a passer like he did in the NFC Championship game and deliver in a big moment. But week to week, he did not perform like that consistently this year. There were stretches where the passing game lagged. There were stretches where members of the passing game criticized it for not being consistent enough.
Right.
So I think you can say that Jalen Hurts did not perform with consistent accuracy and production throughout the year, week to week, without saying Jalen Hurts stinks or Jalen Hurts doesn't get enough credit. Yeah. I do think we know who he is and that he's a guy that can step up in big moments and can do anything you want to do. It's just, I think this year was not quite as consistently great as, say, 2022 was.
Greeny, here's the juxtaposition. There's a lot of people out there that say wins is not a quarterback statistic. All Jalen Hurts does is win. Super Bowl in 2 of the last 3 years. To Graz's point, though, here's where I think you're getting the criticism. During the season, they only averaged 187 yards per game passing the ball, which is 29th in the league. And when we're talking about the fireworks of the Josh Allens, Lamars, and obviously the Mahomes, that's nowhere near where their production is. But I go back to what Jason Kelce said, and again, working with Rex Ryan and how much he hated defending the quarterback runs, he does deserve credit because some of his impact is hard to quantify, and I think that's why there's sort of like this dichotomy about Jalen Hurts. It just looks different than others, but it's still effective.
It's because we can't measure it, Greeny, right?
Right.
We can't measure really his impact because it's not a statistic that backs it up, because Saquon's statistic is his statistic, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But the reality is his impact, and we give Josh Allen a lot of credit for what he don't do, and that's putting the ball at risk. You know, Jalen Hurts had a season a couple years ago, last season, where he continuously turned over the ball.
Yeah.
Right. So now him managing the game, we actually hold it against him. And the reason we hold it against him is because he makes $255 million. When you make that type of money, people want to be entertained every night. They want to see you perform at an MVP caliber level, but they don't need that for them to be effective and be able to win.
The other thing is this Eagles, we talk about the Saquon Barkley and the offensive line, and like it all works together so well. It's such a great team in terms of how it's built and the number of different ways you can win. Like Patrick Mahomes will have a playoff stretch where he doesn't get to 200 yards passing. They win all the games. He gets benefit of the doubt because we've seen him hold up a Lombardi trophy 3 times, right? We haven't seen that with Jalen yet. So, but I mean, you talk about, you know, there's not stats to back it up. He would say, well, we've been in the Super Bowl the 2 out of the last 3 years.
Right.
So that's a stat. I must be doing something right.
But he's the last person we give the credit. We're going to give it to Vic Fangio. We're going to give it to Kellen Moore. We're going to give it to Saquon Barkley. We're going to give it to the offensive line. Then we credit Jalen
I'll
Hurts.
venture to say that if they win this game, he's not going to care who gets the credit.
Right.
No, absolutely.
And Greeny, if you go back to the roots of who he is, his dad was a high school coach.
Yeah.
He went to Alabama. He actually got benched. He was a second-round pick, not a first-round pick. So he's been a little bit of the underdog his whole career. But again, his selflessness to me is critical. And when you hear a former teammate like Jason Kelce, you know, talk about his impact to me, that's the underrated aspect of his game.
The Chiefs Kingdom will raise a banner.
You either win or you learn. It's something that I know that'll motivate me.
There is a back-to-back Super Bowl champion.
Promise you next year we'll go over that three-peat. First time in NFL history, we doing it.
Saquon isn't able to take us to the next level.
Saquon Barkley, you're going to have to deal with the Chiefs.
All we've been through, even this moment right here.
We are 9 days and counting from the Super Bowl, and so I'm giving you green lists every day. And because these are tricky teams, particularly the Chiefs, they live in a lot of these trick plays. We know Andy Reid's going to cook up something for this game. Today, we're going to give you the top 5 trick plays in Super Bowl history. At number 5, we had to save room for the fridge. This is William the Refrigerator Perry. Chicago's absolute blowout of the New England Patriots.
It would be a mini fridge now. The players got a lot bigger since then.
Same location as next week's game.
That's right, it was in New Orleans. Mike Ditka to this day regrets not giving Walter Payton the opportunity to score a touchdown in that game, but it was William Perry who took it in for the score. At number 4, we had to put one Chiefs one in there, right? So we're going to go to last year, or the last time I should say, that the Chiefs and Eagles played each other. They call this the corn dog motion. Bart, what do you think?
Keep your eyes on your luggage. Communication. I tell you what, Andy Reid always has the situational football play ready to go. They got him twice on the same play. Oh, man.
Kadarius Toney with a touchdown. Super Bowl 40 is next. Steelers wide receiver and, of course, former college quarterback Antoine Randall L.
The bus stops here.
With the perfect pass to Hines Ward. Look at that off the little double reverse.
Oh,
That is a heck of a throw.
That's all Antoine Randall L's dreams coming true. At one moment.
He was a terrific quarterback at Indiana. Super Bowl 44, this was tricky. The New Orleans Saints opened the second half with an onside kick, and it worked to perfection.
It's sadly, Green, this play doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
This is against the rules.
I hope they go back to the old school. You know what I'm saying?
The one thing that you lose, you have to declare an onside kick. It can only come in the fourth quarter.
This is the most gutsy call out of all the trick plays.
I wasn't even back from the bathroom yet. I was like, what happened? How did the Saints have the ball?
But there was never any question what was going to be number 1. They call it the Philly special.
Yeah.
Come on.
What's amazing is like,
Big play Nick.
yeah, they repped it in like one of the hotel ballrooms, right, before, because they didn't want anybody to see it on the practice field. And And the Patriots ran it a version of it earlier in the game, and Brady dropped the ball, right?
Exactly right. He mentioned it on the broadcast last week.
He did.
Nick Foles with the touchdown. The Philly special.
They got a statue of it.
That's the #1 trick play in Super Bowl history. The fridge, the corn dog, Randall L., the onside kick, and the Philly special. Let's see if we get anything special in the game coming up next week. In the meantime, speaking of Mahomes, I have been talking on this show now for the last 2 weeks about how the appropriate comparison for Mahomes is Michael Jordan as he approaches the three-peat. Yesterday, Mahomes was asked what it's like to be compared to the likes of Jordan and another legend, Kobe Bryant.
More than anything, is you see the competitors that they are, is that they're going to do whatever it takes to win. That's what you have to be in order to have success in professional sports, is a competitor, someone that's going to put in the work every single week. And watching them and listening to things that when they talk about, that's helped shape my career on how I have to work. And obviously, it's a long way, so I feel like still for me to go to be mentioned with those guys, but I'll try to do whatever I can to be close enough as I can be.
That's as good an answer as you can possibly have, right?
He gives good answers.
How are you supposed to answer the question? People are comparing you to Michael Jordan. Perfect. But the reality is the comparison is appropriate.
Yes.
Right? Because
we're getting there.
He is right there at the top of the list of the best players, and he is right there at the top of the list of the most inevitable winners, the impossible to defeat champions. Yeah. And that's what Michael Jordan was, and that's what Mahomes has become.
Right. You remember, I mean, there were times when you thought the other team was better. The other team was better tonight. But this team had Jordan, and that's why they won the game. And Mahomes has become that guy to the extent that anyone can be in the NFL, where there's 22 guys on the field at a time instead of 10, right? Like it's much harder to be that. But he does seem to be that factor that when you look and pick these games, like my head is telling me 20 different things. But then I look and see Mahomes is still on the Chiefs. I got to take him.
I thought RC's tweet from a week ago when he talked about Burrow, Lamar, Josh Allen all going to the Hall of Fame with no rings. To me, that is the definition of Patrick Mahomes' greatness. Those three quarterbacks may go down as three of the greatest of all time, and they can't touch him. Yeah. That to me shows you how great he is.
Well, I saw someone on TV do an essay about that exactly. Oh, it was me last week. And those three guys are Charles Barkley, who made it to 1 finals, and Michael Jordan averaged 41 points a game in that final when the Suns had home court advantage and Barkley was the league MVP. Karl Malone, whose teams had home court advantage against the Bulls, and he went 0-2 against Michael in the finals. And who was Patrick Ewing. Do you know how many times Patrick Ewing played Jordan in the NBA playoffs? 5. Do you know how many times the Knicks won? 0. That's Josh Allen. So the point is, this is that team of rivals. This is exactly the way it's setting up. By the way, Mahomes is 29. When Jordan completed his first three-peat, he was 30. Ooh, the similarities are eerie.
Ooh. Well, does Mahomes, is he going to go play baseball and give some other guys an opportunity to win? Like, I know he has his repertoire, but I would compare him more.
His dad was a baseball player.
Yeah, Major League Baseball player.
I would compare him more to Magic Johnson because his success is early. Remember, Michael Jordan had to go through the Pistons and Larry Bird, and he was losing. You know, this is early success. We've never seen somebody be so dominant so early in their career. Now, the question is, can he sustain it? Because when you talk about being the greatest of all time, Tom Brady, gets that because of the titles, but also the longevity of his dominance. Once his skills started diminishing physical, he started to win with his mind.
To me, they're ahead of schedule. Outside is Travis Kelce. Who's their go-to receiver? The answer is we don't know. It's a grade of, it could be DeAndre Hopkins, it could be Hollywood Brown. And they moved on from Tyreek Hill, who, to me, unquestionably the most explosive player in the NFL, and they have not missed a beat. Imagine if they go out and get a bona fide #1 receiver in his prime. It's really remarkable what they're doing with, really, outside of Travis Kelce, a group of fairly average skill players.
If you look at Brady's career, which is the football player to which he is going to be compared, Brady won a bunch of Super Bowls early. Then he went a decade without winning one, and then he started winning a bunch of them again. So Mahomes is way ahead of that schedule. So the answer to the question is this. If he wins the Super Bowl next weekend and retires the following day, which obviously is not going to happen.
Unlikely.
No, he's not the greatest of all time.
Right.
But what wouldn't you be willing to bet that by the time it's all said and done, he's going to be, because he is so far ahead of the pace that Brady was on at the same time.
But Bart's point is the key one. Like, how long do you sustain it?
Yeah.
How long do you want to? Right? That's the other thing. I mean, like, Brady is very exceptional, like, to want to play until age 45 because he burned inside to win like that. Like, is Patrick Mahomes still going to feel this way 10, 15 years from now? Like, we don't know, and I'll bet he doesn't either.
But that's why I say you talk about the first three-peats, you talk about Magic, right? You talk about the 80s, how the 80s were pretty much the Celtics and the Lakers.
Pistons, and then the Pistons.
Yeah, and the Lakers and the Pistons, right? So is Josh Allen, is Lamar Jackson, are they the Michael Jordans that are learning how to win by losing to Michael Mahomes, losing to Mahomes, and then come back and learn how to beat Mahomes and his squad later in his career?
You know what's just fascinating to me in this conversation is you would say one of the reasons it could end is, well, Andy Reid's close to the end. But then you look at Pete Carroll. He's like 8 years younger than Pete Carroll. So, like,
he got something special in that chewing gum, though. I'll tell you that.
my point is, like, there's something special between, obviously, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. But I got to think, like, if I'm Andy Reid, like, if I was thinking about retirement, why would I give it up now? Like, I got great coordinators in place. I got a great core. So, to me, like, that kind of goes hand in hand, much the way we always talked about Belichick and Brady.
And he just got a new extension last offseason. He's not going anywhere anytime soon, especially as long as this guy is his quarterback. Yeah. But, you know, what they've built, you know, even if Andy were to decide to go, and again, I don't think he is, like, I feel like they've built something there that could sustain. It's incredible to watch what they put
But you
together.
never know with these coaches because as you get older, it's just, we're all fathers. You understand how much this game takes from you. Sometimes you want to give it back to the game. I think another conversation we should be having is Andy Reid potentially going to be the greatest coach of all time by the time this is all
That's why I
said.
thought, like, people want to say Belichick wanted to come back to catch Shula. I almost think Belichick wanted to come back so Reid didn't catch him, which he's coming.
He's going to do.
You know, as a corollary to this, have we ever seen in one division 4 coaches with the resume of Jim Harbaugh, Pete Carroll, Sean Payton, and Andy Reid?
No.
It's legendary.
The answer is no. It's the most wins by any division that had.
I mean, there's no weak link amongst those 4.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, but they're all looking up at Reid and at Mahomes,
Yeah.
and we will see if Mahomes is able to win another one.